So I'd like to begin with a quote from John O'Donohue, who says that in general that there is a desperate hunger for belonging in our culture in these times. And here's what he says in a little more detail. He says, in postmodern culture, there is a deep hunger to belong. An increasing majority of people feel isolated and marginalized. Experience is haunted by fragmentation. Many of the traditional shelters are in ruins. Society is losing the art of fostering community. Consumerism is now propelling life towards the lonely isolation of individualism. Technology pretends to unite us, yet more often than not, all it delivers are simulated images. The quote, global village has no roads or neighbors. It is a faceless limbo from which all individuality has been abstracted. And he goes on for a while, and then he says, it seems that we are in the midst of a huge crisis of belonging. When the outer culture shelters are in ruins, we need to explore and reawaken the depths of belonging in the human mind and soul. Perhaps the recognition of the depth of our hunger to belong may gradually assist us in awakening new and unexpected possibilities of community and friendship. And I would add to that community that not just neighbors, but a sense of this very large community of Earth that we are part of, Earth and all her being, all the beings. So I want to, this idea of belonging, where is there belonging or not belonging, and how does that express it in our experience? And just a couple possibilities that you might have sensed is like to a place. And this is so different, right, than it used to be, in that many of us are mobile. It's probably a rare person, and there may be some of you that have stayed in the place where you started, in your community and family are still all around you, but it's very rare. And likewise, even the belonging in a family, we often don't live in the same place as our family does anymore. And we may or may not feel that we belong in our family, that, differences of culture, timing, politics these days have added an additional layer, that even that most basic place of belonging, and some families, it's harmful to actually be in that environment. And so it's not a place that we want to belong. And also other places like belonging in a community or a spiritual tradition. If you have a sangha, you may have a sense of belonging sometimes, and then sometimes it doesn't feel that way at all. Place of work. Sometimes that gives us some, along with an identity, it might also give us a sense of belonging. But sometimes it's funny how each of the places that might have an opportunity, we think, for a sense of belonging, where we think, oh, this is a place where I might belong, also seems to often exacerbate the feeling of not belonging, because there's some sort of expectation that we should feel belonging there. And then when we don't, it's very noticeable. One of the things that's really interesting about this sense of belonging and not belonging is I think we're much more aware of it in its absence than in its presence. And obviously belonging among friends, that in some ways is at times one of the easier places, because that's a place that we choose, but not always. But I want to expand and say that there are places, there is a rootedness, a place of belonging that is inherent with the fact that we're alive, that we're human beings, that we are on this earth, that a sense of belonging to this earth, to this shared unfolding that we are part of, This is the area that our practice can help us understand, where we start to understand that the other belongings, the ones that I've just mentioned, that those may come and go and have to do with other people and the responses and our emotional and psychological state at a given time. But below all of that, there is a fundamental belonging that we can relate to and understand, which is to be part of this earth, to be belonging in these bodies, in our own beingness, in the capacities and what we bring, to belong and to align and to be intimate with our own goodness. Part of what we're looking for in belonging, right, is a kind of relaxation, a kind of ease. And so sometimes we look for that in outside circumstances, like the family or a place of work. And the invitation in our practice is to start seeing that it is part of our fundamental nature, that in this world of mutual interdependence, that we inherently belong, that this reflects the truth of the way things are, that we are embedded in a world so completely embedded that we couldn't possibly not belong. That there's this flow of reciprocity, an ongoing conversation between our bodies, our hearts, our minds, all our senses, everything, the breath. We're in an embedded, full relational conversation that is constantly inviting us to know the belonging that is already here. And I think there's something a little subtler, important here, is that the reason this even comes up is because on some level, we know we belong. Like that is the natural state that feels like the place our systems are at rest, when it recognizes the truth that we are deeply embedded and belong. And so when we're out of alignment with that, when we don't feel it, it feels off. It feels like something's not right. And I think that we are so intelligent in ways that we don't know, that aren't this kind of intelligence. There's a system, a heart, mind, body intelligence. This also comes out in talking about the basic goodness that is here in us. And this goodness, we know it's here because when we're aligned with it, our whole system relaxes. It's like, oh yeah, I can feel how when I say a kind thing, when I do something that's in integrity for me, when I speak or do in a way that is good, it is aligned. Good, by good, I mean skillful, wholesome, and kind. That the goodness of that in us is reflected, and we feel a sense of relaxation. And this is true also in the sense of belonging, that we know we belong and we can feel when there's that relaxation. And one of the things that's really interesting to reflect is that the Buddha's path is deeply relational. The Buddha woke up under the Bodhi tree, and he did sit there for a few weeks, digesting and enjoying his awakening. And then he went out, and for the next 40 years, plus or more, 45 years, was in relationship. He created a sangha and started teaching. He had people around him all the time. He was very much in this ongoing Sangha and larger community relationship. And I think that's really interesting to notice. Yes, we do go on retreat, and there's, just like he did, to investigate. And yes, there are cave yogis, but really the Buddhist path is deeply relational. We do this together because this deep sense of being in the world is the truth of the way things are. And it's often what we have to explore and come to terms with in our practice. Understanding that we are not separate. So the belonging is very related to the understanding around anatta. Anatta, it means not self, for those of you not familiar with the Pali word, but the understanding that there is no isolated permanent thing here or there. And as we sense this embedded reciprocity of belonging, it softens the boundary and the isolation of self. And the anatta, this not being cut off, the isolation that we feel when we don't understand anatta starts to break down. And the freedom of realizing that we do completely belong, that there is no other option. That is a freedom. And so I sort of am approaching, like, what is belonging? What does that mean? I mean, we sort of sometimes get caught between an idea of I want to belong and the fallacy that it's a static place, that somehow I'm going to belong and then it's going to stay there. And it's not really like that. Belonging is a verb. Belonging is an expression of feeling this exchange, this reciprocity, this conversation that we're involved in, and having a sense of relaxation in that, a sense of safety in that conversation of inner relation, an ease and peacefulness in being in this intimate relationship with other people, other beings, and the earth. At the root of all this, and I've already said it, but to repeat it, is the idea we already belong. We're just trying to tune into the truth of what is already here. John O'Donohue also says in another place, he says, our bodies know that they belong. It is our minds that make our lives so homeless. Our bodies know that they belong. It is our minds that make our lives so homeless. So I want to read you a poem you might be familiar with that just sort of has this feel that we're moving towards. And it's called The Little Duck by Donald Balcock. Now we are ready to look at something pretty special. It's a duck riding the ocean 100 feet beyond the surf. No, it isn't a gull. A gull always has a raucous touch about them. This is some sort of duck, and he cuddles into the swells. He isn't cold, and he is thinking things over. There is a big heaving in the Atlantic, and he is part of it. He can rest while the Atlantic heaves, because he rests in the Atlantic. Probably he doesn't know how large the ocean is, and neither do you. But he realizes it. And what does he do? I ask you. He sits down in it. He reposes in it as if it were an infinity, which it is. That is religion, and the duck has it. He has made himself a part of the boundless by easing himself into it just where it touches him. So I'd like us to begin sitting together, and the place I'd like to start with this sense of investigation is, as the Buddha starts in his instructions, with is the body and the breath. So I'll lead a little bit about the body, just sort of coming into contact with the body on this sit, and then the next sit when we come back, I'll do a little bit more with the breath. So I encourage you to find your comfortable sitting posture and just sort of setting yourself up. We'll just be sitting for about 25 minutes. So let yourself find, with your eyes closed, feel the posture of your body and feel how you're resting on the earth. Feel your contact with the ground. It might be through your feet, through the buttocks, onto a chair or cushion. And just starting to make contact as we settle into this time of retreat together. Take a moment to feel the ground and feel the space that you're sitting in. There's some awareness that there's other people sitting too because of the computer. And just a side note, when we're sitting, if you don't want to have the computer, facing the computer and things, it doesn't matter. You can sit however is most comfortable for you. And feel the room around you. And feel the space beyond the room, the ground of the earth that stretches out beyond the room. Let your awareness stretch out with it. Just kind of settling into this place. Begin inviting this kind of settling energy. And then take a moment to just feel inside as well. Just notice if there's some emotion present for you. Some mind state. It's understandable that, as we settle into retreat, we're going to be bringing the world with us. When we close our eyes and settle in, it's not like anything is being pushed away or dissolves. It's all here. All the challenges of the world, everything that's happening with Ukraine and all its people, the climate crisis, the ecological crisis, the kind things that somebody said to you yesterday, the to-do list. All of it's here. And when we sit, we can acknowledge that all of that is here, the whole world. And we hold it, but we let it settle. In fact, we are taking this time to invite and to offer a settled heart and mind to the world. It's the gift we can offer into this complex, challenging world right now. So letting all of it be here, but let it slowly settle. And feel your body settle into this spot. Notice if you can relax your shoulders. Maybe take a few deep breaths and exhale as you breathe out. Or relax as you breathe out. And then beginning to just briefly scan through the body with a kind of acknowledgement and appreciation. We'll begin just up at the head and realizing that the rejection of our bodies is a fundamental abandonment of who we are and the ease and relaxation that is possible for us. And so the possibility to come deeply into our bodies. Each moment a new opportunity to connect, to land more fully. Just starting up at your top of your head and just feeling your head and seeing if you can just sort of relax the muscles around the head, the forehead in particular, and the eyes often. And you can appreciate the brain and all it does, while not necessarily activating it in this moment to some big project, but just letting it quiet down and saying thank you. And letting the eyes that work so hard, letting them too soften with appreciation. And our nose and mouth, letting the face and jaw soften. Acknowledging all these sense gates, ears as well. Letting the attention flow down from the head into the neck and the base of the neck, around the whole shoulder girdle. Noticing if the shoulders can continue to soften. Just letting ourselves land inside our bodies. See if you can sense each part of the body from the inside. Not so much the description or the name or how you imagine it might look or should feel, but what's actually there. Let your attention run down the two arms, feeling your upper arms, lower arms, into the hands. And feeling the main torso, the upper part of the torso. You might notice the breath coming and going. Feeling the upper ribs expand and the upper back. Letting your attention come lower down into the mid-torso area. Letting the breath moving the ribs, feeling it in the diaphragm. beginning to have that more internal sense of knowing what is here from the inside, not needing to change it or make it different, exactly how it is. Dropping lower into the belly. Dropping very low, all the way to the base of the torso, all the way down into the perineum. Feeling into the hip joint, where the legs join in the groin. Letting yourself land more fully into the base of your body. And then taking a moment just to feel your whole body from the torso up and your arms, and just feel yourself sitting here. And allowing the breath to flow and the attention to flow down into the legs. Feeling your upper legs. Noticing as you do this if there's some relaxation or settling that can be invited. It happens quite naturally just by bringing your attention into the body. Becoming aware of the lower legs. Coming into the feet. And reconnecting with that contactfulness with the ground. And then once again, taking in the full body, the sense of it sitting here, landed fully on this spot, held in place with the hug of gravity. And as you sense the body sitting here, you can begin to allow your attention, if you'd like, to come to the flow of the breath in the body. Or you can stay with just the sense of the body. Letting the inflow of the breath connect you more fully And of course, as we know, the mind gets involved and tends to pull us away into some thought or thinking process. And as soon as we notice that, we can just let ourselves softly, kindly come back and land right back here in this body, in this location. And let that coming home to the body, when you drop the thought and you come back, see if you can notice that feeling of arriving. So instead of being worried about the fact that you were caught in the thinking, instead, let yourself notice the arriving. And even if you don't drift away in a thinking process, you can just notice with each inhale or exhale, or in the way your attention settles more deeply, keep tuning to the sense of being here, of being connected, of landing ever more clearly right here in this heart, mind, and body. So as you move from your sitting, when you're ready, take your time. If you'd like to continue sitting, I encourage you to do that. Just stay in connection with your body. Stay connected